Chosen one, listen closely. You were never meant to stumble upon this message. Every word, every moment, every breath that brought you here was divinely arranged. The revelation you are about to understand is not a coincidence. It is coordination between heaven and time. God has uncovered something long hidden, something written with your name. Not an idea, not a metaphor, but an actual inheritance, a property sealed beneath layers of silence, waiting for this exact moment. For years it was buried under legal words, forgotten records, and the blindness of those who never looked deep enough to see the sacred. Yet even when humans forget, God remembers. And what he remembers, he restores. Stay with me, because the address I'm about to reveal will make your heart skip. Don't turn away. Something extraordinary is waiting for you. This revelation is not about possession, but purpose. It is not about land, but lineage. The property that has surfaced bears more than your identity. It carries your spiritual DNA. It was chosen as a vessel to hold your family's prayers, your ancestors' faith, and the echoes of promises once spoken into the wind. The world calls it a coincidence. Heaven calls it continuation. God has not given you something new. He has returned what was never meant to be lost. What was hidden was not stolen. It was preserved until your eyes were ready to recognize it. For generations, that inheritance lay silent, guarded by unseen hands. Papers faded, names disappeared, and yet the divine record stayed untouched. No earthly neglect could overwrite what heaven wrote in permanence. When the time came, the Spirit moved through history itself, rearranging events, unlocking archives, and allowing light to fall on what had been unseen. You may have thought it was forgotten, but heaven was merely aligning the right hearts and hands to uncover it. That is how revelation works. It doesn't rush. It arrives in rhythm with divine readiness. C.S. Lewis once wrote in The Weight of Glory, "There are no ordinary people. You have never talked to a mere mortal." The meaning of those words resounds here. This revelation proves that your life is not random, that your name carries eternal significance. God's handwriting extends beyond pages. It shapes geography, heritage, and time itself. The land tied to you was not chosen by accident. It was assigned. Just as every star has a place in the heavens, every believer has a ground upon which their purpose takes root. You are not merely inheriting soil. You are reclaiming the physical reflection of a spiritual promise. Each part of this discovery is a signpost. The document with your name, the photograph, the coordinates, they are confirmations that God has been tracing your path through silence. Every delay you called a failure was part of the architecture of timing. The waiting did not erase your promise. It carved the capacity to understand it. God does not entrust revelation to the unready. He reveals only to those who can see not just with eyes, but with faith. The property reappearing in your life is more than restoration. It is evidence of remembrance. Heaven is reminding you that you have never been outside of its memory. What was once buried has risen not to surprise you, but to awaken you. The revelation is not about discovery, it is about recognition. Recognition of a plan that was already in motion before your doubts, before your prayers, before your understanding. This is God's way of saying, I never forgot your name. You feel it even now, the pulse of alignment moving through you. Every heartbeat matches the rhythm of divine orchestration. The revelation is complete, but its meaning is still unfolding. The property, the record, the moment they exist as one truth, heaven never loses what belongs to faith. What has surfaced is not just land, but legacy. And what you are witnessing is not luck, it is the living proof that destiny always keeps its promises. Now that the truth has begun to unfold, it is time to understand what this revelation truly means. What is being restored to you is not just a forgotten property or a misplaced document, it is your legacy. This is not about ownership or material gain. It is about remembrance, identity, and divine intention. God is not returning something small. He is restoring a part of his plan that carries your name. The ground that bears your mark is sacred because it has absorbed generations of faith, endurance, and prayer. Those who walked before you whispered their hopes into that soil, and those whispers have now reached heaven's ear. The inheritance that reappears in this season is the echo of every promise ever made on your behalf. If these words stir something inside you, don't let this moment pass. Type 777 in the comments as your declaration of faith. It isn't just a number, it's a symbol of divine completion, a sign that you receive this message from heaven. When you write it, you're saying, "Lord, I receive this. I believe this word is for me." Let that simple act be your agreement with what God is revealing over your life. And if this message touched your spirit, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss what heaven is preparing to unveil next. Stay connected, stay expectant because God is still speaking, and your name is still being called. Every wall within that place holds memory. Every window carries light that once touched your ancestors' faces. It is no coincidence that this property has returned to sight. It is the completion of a circle that began long before you were born. You were meant to find it at this exact moment because you are now able to recognize what it truly represents. When God restores, He restores meaning before matter. He revives purpose before possession. He aligns your spirit before He places anything in your hands. That is why the waiting was necessary. It was shaping your understanding of what you are about to receive. This inheritance is not merely proof that heaven remembers. It is proof that heaven plans with precision. You were not forgotten. You were being prepared. What you thought was silence was actually a strategy. What you saw as loss was divine positioning. When you prayed for restoration, God began aligning events that would bring you face to face with this confirmation. The property is symbolic, but it is also tangible evidence of a spiritual truth, that nothing bearing your divine signature can ever be erased. The very air around it hums with purpose because heaven has marked it for your recognition. Feel the weight of this truth. Your legacy was never broken, only buried for a season. It waited patiently for you to mature into the understanding that inheritance is not about possession, but alignment with God's timing. You are stepping into the fulfillment of something written before time itself, a chapter that connects your story to those who came before. Every delay was preparing you to hold it with reverence. Every hardship was shaping your faith to recognize it when it returned. This is your legacy, alive, restored, and reaffirmed by God's own hand. It is your name, your story, and your proof that divine promises do not expire. Heaven has remembered every detail, and now the earth is echoing the same truth. What God ordains can be delayed, but never denied. For years, the record of your inheritance lay buried beneath layers of dust, sealed in silence, tucked away where no eye dared to look. It was not lost, it was hidden, preserved by divine instruction. When the world tried to erase your trace, heaven wrote your name in ink that does not fade. Now, as time aligns with truth, the forgotten document begins to surface. What once appeared ordinary has become sacred evidence that God never misplaces what He ordains. Somewhere in an archive, a drawer was opened, and there it was, a single sheet, aged by time, edges yellowed, ink faint but unbroken. At the bottom, a signature, yours. The shock comes not from what it says, but from the impossibility of its existence, for you never signed it. Yet the name written there carries the same energy, the same authority, as the one heaven calls. This is not forgery, it is confirmation. The handwriting of destiny cannot be faked. God's pen writes beyond human comprehension. When He establishes something, it becomes truth that no man can undo. Every time they tried to erase your name, heaven rewrote it. Every time you were overlooked, heaven lifted you higher in silence. Every time you were told, "It's gone," God whispered, "Not yet." The forgotten document stands as testimony that the divine record never loses accuracy. It may take years for the physical to align with the spiritual, but once heaven speaks, the earth eventually follows. This is the nature of divine timing. It does not rush, it does not forget, it simply waits for you to be ready to see what has always been written. Imagine holding that page in your hands. The paper trembles slightly, as if breathing. The air around it feels heavier, as though it carries memory. Every line is alive with spiritual resonance. You can almost hear the echo of your own prayers in the faint rustle of the parchment. It is not just an old document. It is a covenant reaffirmed. God allowed it to stay hidden, so that when it was found, its meaning would strike your heart, not just your eyes. Understand this. Heaven does not keep receipts, it keeps promises. The discovery of that record is not random. It is divine revelation manifesting in physical form. It is proof that what God sealed for you cannot be misplaced, forgotten, or stolen. The world may lose papers, but heaven never loses people. You were never out of the plan. You were being written into it. Now the document has resurfaced, carrying your name once more into the light. The seal that once bound it is broken, and what was locked away has been released. This is the unveiling of truth. What God signs, no man can cancel. What heaven declares, no time can conceal. The forgotten document has remembered you. Deep within the walls of the property, beyond the corridors of time and memory, there lies a hidden chamber, a place untouched for decades, sealed by silence but guarded by grace. No one has stepped inside for generations, yet it has never been empty. The air within it holds a pulse, a rhythm that beats in harmony with heaven's plan. This is where truth waited. This is where destiny slept until now. When God hides something, he does not bury it in darkness. He preserves it in light unseen. The chamber is small, but every surface speaks. The dust upon the floor carries traces of prayer. The faint scent of aged wood mingles with the feeling of expectancy. Light filters through a single crack in the ceiling, illuminating what the world forgot. On a wooden table lies a letter folded with precision, a silk cloth covering an object, and a painting resting against the wall, half faded, yet breathing with color. They are not relics, they are messages. Each one carries a fragment of revelation, waiting for the rightful eye to see. As you step closer, something stirs inside you, not fear, but recognition. The atmosphere changes, almost bending with awareness. The silence feels alive, as if it has been listening for your footsteps all along. You realize this place has been expecting you. It was never abandoned. It was waiting. The letter bears handwriting you recognize, though you have never seen it before. The ink has not faded. It has merely been asleep. When you unfold it, the words are not read, they are felt. They speak of remembrance, of bloodlines preserved, of prayers answered in their own time. It is written in the language of heaven, concise, timeless, absolute. Beside the letter is the object wrapped in silk. When uncovered, it reveals a symbol etched in silver, the same symbol that has appeared in your dreams and moments of prayer. The realization strikes with holy weight. What you thought was imagination was preparation. God has been showing you glimpses all along, training your soul to recognize what belongs to you. The painting nearby catches your attention. Its surface appears dull until light touches it, and then another image slowly emerges. Beneath the visible one, a hidden figure, faint and radiant, almost alive. It is as though heaven painted twice on the same canvas, once for the world and once for you. You stand still, unable to speak. Everything around you hums with confirmation. The hidden chamber is not a room, it is a revelation made physical. It holds proof that heaven's memory never decays. What was guarded here was not treasure but testimony. It says this: God never hides to punish, he hides to protect. And when the time is right, the lock gives way, the light enters, and what was sealed begins to breathe again. There is a reason the revelation took years to unfold. Time itself was part of the plan. What felt like a delay was never neglect, it was divine engineering. Every unanswered prayer, every silent night, Every closed door was building the strength required to carry what is now being restored. God's timing does not bend to impatience, it aligns with readiness. He was never late. He was teaching you alignment, not speed. He was refining your perception, not testing your worth. The years that seemed wasted were foundations being laid beneath your faith. Delay teaches patience. Silence builds faith. Waiting creates vision. These are not poetic words. They are laws written into the fabric of spiritual growth. When God pauses, it is never for lack of power, it is for abundance of purpose. What He was preparing in you was as significant as what He was preparing for you. Some blessings can only be held by hearts that have endured. Every season of emptiness was secretly stretching your capacity to recognize the miraculous when it arrived. If you had received it too early, you would have called it a coincidence. But now, after the fire and the silence, you can call it what it truly is, providence. Think of Joseph, imprisoned in Egypt, forgotten by those he helped. Years passed before his release, yet every day in the shadows was part of a larger pattern. When his freedom came, it was not just to escape the cell, it was to step into rulership. What men meant for evil, God meant for good. Every setback was a setup for fulfillment. The same principle runs through your story. What looked like loss was preservation. What looked like failure was foundation. The property, the letter, the symbol, none of them could appear until you had endured enough to see them as more than objects. They are confirmations, not rewards. God delayed nothing. He only positioned everything. The rhythm of heaven has always been patient because eternity is not rushed. The same God who spoke galaxies into existence also counts your tears and uses them as ink to write new beginnings. When He restores, He does not return things in the condition they were lost. He upgrades them, perfects them, sanctifies them. You are now standing at the threshold of divine timing realized. The clock that once seemed still was never broken, it was being recalibrated to strike this exact moment. So breathe. Let the years of waiting find their meaning. You are not behind schedule, you are precisely on heaven's time. What survives the silence will flourish in the light. God was never delaying your destiny, He was synchronizing it. At last, the moment long concealed behind silence begins to unfold. The air shifts, the atmosphere thickens with meaning, and you realize that what you once called loss was only the gathering of divine momentum. Heaven has started to move again, and its rhythm is unmistakable. The return is not just physical, it is spiritual. It is the reunion of purpose and promise, the moment where what you believed meets what God always intended. Nothing is coincidental now. Every sound, every shadow, every breath seems to echo a single truth. What was hidden is returning home. The gates stand before you, once rusted shut, now glimmering faintly in the sunlight. As you step closer, the wind rises, not with force but with familiarity, carrying a resonance that feels ancient and intimate at once. You do not simply approach, you are being drawn. Heaven is calling creation to respond. A faint bell rings in the distance, not from the outside world, but from the realm unseen. It is not metal striking metal, it is faith striking fulfillment. That sound is heaven's approval, the signal that alignment has been completed. Every sound is a sign, every sign is a call, every call is a confirmation. You are not chasing miracles anymore, they are meeting you halfway. This is not imagination. This is divine synchronization. What you are feeling is the recognition of something your soul has always known. The air vibrates with gratitude. Even creation seems to rejoice as though the ground itself recognizes the rightful heir returning. The light falls differently now, sharper, yet softer, illuminating what was once forgotten. You sense that nothing here is dormant, every particle carries awareness. As you cross the threshold, the silence that greets you is not emptiness. It is peace. You can almost hear the whisper of generations saying, "We waited for you." The house does not creak, it breathes. The walls seem to exhale relief, as if centuries of waiting are finally released in a single moment of arrival. You realize this is what divine timing feels like, not sudden, but right. The gates that once denied entry now welcome it. The property is no longer a mystery. It is recognition in physical form. The return is not about reclaiming the past. It is about stepping into alignment with eternity. The hands that once held this inheritance may be gone, but their prayers remain, written into the air that now surrounds you. This is more than restoration. It is resurrection. The delay has ended, the circle has closed, and heaven has whispered its final verdict. You are home. In the stillness after the return, your eyes are drawn toward a small object resting on the stone ledge near the entrance. A key wrapped in crimson cloth. It seems insignificant at first, yet the moment your fingers touch it, the air trembles as though all creation recognizes the weight of what you now hold. This is not a key made by human hands. It carries warmth, almost a heartbeat of its own. The crimson wrapping glows faintly in the light, symbolizing covenant, sacrifice, and access. God does not place keys in idle hands. He entrusts them to those prepared by fire and faith. You unwrap it carefully, and as the light strikes the metal, you see symbols engraved upon it, your initials, intertwined with a small mark shaped like infinity. Nothing about it feels random. Every curve, every groove seems designed with purpose. The gate before you stands tall, its arch carved with phrases half erased by time, yet one line remains visible, prepared for the one who waited. The wind moves again, gentle yet deliberate, as if inviting you to step forward. The moment you insert the key, the gate responds with a deep, resonant sound, not the creak of iron, but a tone, almost like music. It is the sound of restoration completing its circle. The hinges shift, the lock releases, and for the first time, the gate opens fully. Light floods through the opening, and suddenly you understand, this was never just about entry into a place. It was about the entry into purpose. The gate was not guarding land, it was guarding timing. Until now, heaven itself held the lock closed to keep the blessing safe. You take a step inside, and the light bends as if it recognizes you. Every shadow retreats. The pathway ahead seems to hum softly, alive with a rhythm that matches your heartbeat. God does not open doors halfway. When He gives access, He gives authority. This key is not permission, it is confirmation. You are not being allowed in, you are being welcomed home. The meaning of the crimson cloth becomes clear. It was not a covering, it was a seal. It represented the bloodline of grace that has protected everything tied to your destiny. What you hold is not metal, it is metaphor. It is faith turned tangible, prayer turned form, promise turned key. And as the gate closes quietly behind you, the sound is not finality, it is fulfillment. The heavens whisper a single truth into the silence. Every gate that God opens is eternal, and every key He gives leads only toward His purpose. Standing within the open gates, you begin to understand what this journey has truly been about. It was never about the land, the letter, or the key. It was about proof. Proof that heaven remembers that nothing carrying the divine purpose can ever be erased. This realization moves beyond emotion. It reaches into recognition. You start to see how every detour, every heartbreak, every silent prayer was a line written into a larger story, one that God authored before you even knew how to read it. The hidden property was never simply a reward for endurance. It was a mirror meant to show you who you are and whose you are. You feel it now, not as revelation alone, but as understanding. Restoration is not God returning what was lost. It is Him revealing what was never truly gone. The house, the gate, the key, they are parables of identity. You were not waiting for heaven to move. Heaven was waiting for you to awaken. What you mistook for delay was divine choreography. What you thought was silence was strategy. Everything aligns when recognition arrives. God does not measure time as humans do. He measures readiness. And now that you are ready to see through the surface, the truth begins to unfold without resistance. C.S. Lewis once wrote that God whispers in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. That truth echoes here. Every ache was heaven's way of pulling your attention back toward meaning. You were never being punished, you were being positioned. The divine realization does not come with noise, it arrives in peace. It is the awareness that what seemed forgotten was being nurtured in the unseen, like roots spreading beneath soil before the bloom. This is what restoration looks like. It is not sudden abundance, but revealed alignment. Now, as you walk deeper into the property, the light no longer blinds you, it guides you. You begin to see that restoration has 3 layers. First, the restoration of identity, God, reminding you of who you are beyond failure and delay. Second, the restoration of purpose, every gift, every calling that felt dormant now rising again. Third, the restoration of faith, the ability to trust, not because of what you see, but because of what you know. These are not separate, they are one continuous flow of divine completion. You pause, breathing in the air that feels both ancient and new. Everything around you vibrates with the same message. You were never alone in the waiting. Heaven was not distant, it was deliberate. The realization settles not in your mind, but in your soul. It feels like recognition, like remembering a melody you've always known but forgotten how to hum. That's what divine revelation is. Not new information, but ancient truth rediscovered. You are not standing in front of a property. You are standing in front of confirmation. The silence of years collapses into clarity, and you finally see what heaven has been saying all along. What God ordains, He sustains, and what He sustains, He brings to light when the time is right. Now that revelation has become recognition and understanding has settled into faith, you stand at the heart of everything that was promised. The property, the key, the light, the symbol, each of them was never about possession but preparation. What God has returned to you is not merely what was lost, it is what was refined. Every year of silence was a verse in a larger psalm of timing. Every unanswered prayer was not ignored but rewritten as alignment. Now, the air itself seems different. The walls no longer whisper, they sing. Heaven has finished its unveiling, and what remains is the response, the prayer that seals restoration into permanence. Close your eyes and breathe. The peace you feel now is not the end of struggle, but the beginning of understanding. The same God who revealed this mystery did not do so for spectacle, but for covenant. He is calling you into communion, not observation. Speak now not as one who pleads, but as one who remembers. Speak from a place of knowing that what was meant for you can never belong to another. Whisper if you must, but let your words carry truth. Father, thank you for the years that taught patience, for the nights that refined faith, for the silence that shaped my listening. Every loss that once felt like emptiness was soil preparing the seed. Today, I acknowledge that nothing was wasted. You were working in the unseen, arranging every delay so that my spirit could meet my destiny at the appointed hour, restore what was hidden, redeem what was lost, renew what was broken. Let every space, once filled with fear, now become a dwelling of peace. In this moment of prayer, you begin to feel how restoration flows. It is not something done to you, but through you. You realize that divine inheritance is not meant to make you richer, but truer. You see how the pain that once confined you has become proof of your preparation. You understand that grace is not an event but a continuum, a current that never stops moving toward those who believe. Heaven is not far, it has always been inside the waiting heart. Now, lift your head. The wind outside the gate has softened, but it carries a warmth that feels alive. This is not merely weather, it is witness. You sense that everything around you agrees with this prayer. Even creation acknowledges what heaven has declared. The return is complete, but its meaning is eternal. So let this be your final declaration. God, I receive not only what you've restored, but who you've made me through the waiting. I no longer call it a delay, I call it design. Let my steps from this day forward carry remembrance of this moment where heaven proved that nothing ordained can be erased. As light settles on the horizon, the property glows softly, almost breathing. The sound that follows is not an ending but fulfillment. Heaven's final whisper drifts through the still air, gentle, resolute, undeniable. What was hidden is restored, what was delayed is delivered. What was always yours has finally come home.